When Sony released the PS5, I didn't see a great reason to even want one. I mean, sure, the new capabilities of the console seemed cool enough with the ray tracing and the adaptive controllers and all that. Like, the triggers on these things are adaptive with some things that you're doing, which is pretty cool. But at release of the PS5, there simply wasn't an exclusive game available that really got my attention, so I remained content with the PS4. That is until Spider-Man 2, released in 2023. I'd played the PS4's Spider-Man a ton at this point and loved the game a lot, and so the sequel is what made me want a PS5 in the first place. Now, having acquired one and played through the game multiple times, I can safely give a solid review on it, and I would like to, because without it, I may never have gotten my PS5 at all, and may never have opened the doors to many more games that I've really come to enjoy. So this is my review of Insomniac's Spider-Man 2. The 5-year development cycle of this game is the first thing I want to go over, because it's actually a disaster, and it's truly a wonder that this game is as good as it is, in my opinion, despite all of that. Many things were cut from the game during the development process, including whole missions, suits, and story arcs. Probably a good call to cut from the story, but I'll get to the story later. During pre-production, all the game's bosses were planned, but some were cut. The Beetle, another venomized version of Mary Jane other than the one we got with Scream, a venomized Miles Morales, and Carnage were all cut. Personally, I think these battles would have been interesting to play, especially the venomized Miles, because the fight with the venomized Peter that is in the game is really awesome. It poses a challenge, and there is a lot of emotion between the two Spider-Men as it goes along, but these bosses were cut basically because Sony told Insomniac to do it because they, Sony, didn't think the game would reach the level of quality it needed to with those bosses left in. This led to Venom being introduced later in the story than originally intended as well, which causes a story problem that I will go over later. That being the case, I get the feeling this game would have been better if Sony had been more lax with Insomniac. For example, only about 10% of the voice lines for Venom that were recorded actually ended up in the final game. How much more fleshed out would Venom's character feel if we'd gotten to see those voice lines? Venom feels rushed, but that's another thing for later. Another character that suffered as a result of the Sony cuts was Kraven. Since Venom's screen time had been reduced drastically, he was introduced very quickly, and so Kraven's story ended very quickly all the same. So he was another rushed character as a result of the pre-production cuts. And now we get to talk about the story. The story of this game is very complicated. Major parts had to be rewritten because of the Sony cuts, but even before that, there still definitely would have been a lot going on in the story of this game. I don't have many complaints about the main story concerning Peter and Harry. It stays relatively protected from the many other things happening around it in the game. The more storied side missions make sense and are enjoyable, especially the Flame side missions that introduce Cletus Cassidy, also known as Carnage, into the universe. It's nice to know that even though there was originally a Carnage boss fight intended for the game, they still found a way to introduce the character so that it leaves the door open for Carnage in Spider-Man 3. Another side mission I like is Howard, which gives an emotional conclusion to the story of a character that has appeared in all 3 games so far. I've basically already voiced my 2 biggest complaints about the story, but here they are again, Kraven and Venom. They're both very rushed, and it seems like both of these issues are due to the Sony cuts. But another thing I don't particularly like is how much side content is given to Miles, in the form of side missions that have nothing to do with, well, anything, according to the main story at all. For a good long while playing this game, Miles is basically unassociated with the main story entirely, as he has all of this filler content to keep himself canonically occupied until the script needs him again. It feels like a bit of a waste, and if this wasn't the case, we could have had that Venomized Miles fight, and that would have been awesome to say the least. Overall, the story is very busy and very rushed in many places, but it does what it needs to do at the end of the day. I'm sure Insomniac isn't very happy with it, but I wouldn't go as far as to call it bad, as long as Sony's happy, right? Gameplay is where this game truly shines. So let's go over the map first. It's practically double the size of the map in the last two games, now including Queens, as well as the Manhattan we know and love from the previous games. Fast traveling after you've completed some objectives in the map's regions has never been easier, as it takes great advantage of the PS5's computing capabilities and seamlessly transitions you to where you wanted to be on the map, and you are right back to playing again. Speaking of seamless transitions, let's talk about transport now. Despite the fast travel in this game being done so well, I almost didn't want to the first time I played it because I found the transport so fun. They took what they learned from the last two games, made it better, and then added some cool new things on top of it, like the web wings and the cool loops you can do. The web wings feel very natural and do a great job of filling the gap where there isn't much to swing from, and that was a problem I noticed a lot, especially in PS4's Spider-Man. Switching over to suits for a second, there are a lot of designs to choose from, and even sub-styles for most suits, and even more to be unlocked in New Game Plus. Some of these are just kind of stupid though, and the main one I want to dog on is this suit for Miles. It's the suit he uses at the end of the game, so it's supposed to be his cool new original Spider-Man suit, all that crap, but a lot of people have issues with it, and so do I. Aside from the rather silly rather silly color scheme, I just think it makes him look like a kid, which is dumb, because in his solo game, the whole point of it was how Miles had to branch off. He had to establish himself as his own hero, as Spider-Man, not Spider-Boy, which this suit makes him look like. I can't help but remember Kid Flash from DC when I look at this suit. Like, we went through all that effort to make Miles his own hero, just for him to turn right back into a kid again. If I had to gripe about the gameplay at all, it would have to be the MJ missions that I take the most issue with. Something about the idea of she took a self-defense class, so now she can single-handedly infiltrate and take out this entire zoo full of heavily trained Russian hunters with nothing but a stun gun doesn't sit right with me. If we're gonna do that, can we make her her own superhero with more specialized gear, or could we have found a way to have her gain some powers instead of just handing her a stun gun? That would have made her missions a lot more enjoyable, and it also just kind of pretends the whole argument Pete and MJ had about these antics in the first game never even happened, because apparently it's perfectly okay now. So, despite everything I have said and laid on the table about Spider-Man 2, why do I think that this game is still good and fun to play? Many things were cut. The game probably should have been released a year later, and it could really use a director's cut. I feel like a lot of people would like that. All of these things are fair to say, and I totally agree. After thinking about it a lot, the reason I think Spider-Man 2 is still good and worth playing is because I am a nerd. That's right, I may be a bit biased, but not biased enough to leave out the facts. And the fact is that this game should have had more time to cook. I'm making this video to say that Spider-Man 3 needs to learn from this game's mistakes. The story of Spider-Man 2, despite its faults, has set the groundwork for Spider-Man 3 to be an amazing game if done correctly. No dumb corporate cuts, and more time to flesh things out if it feels rushed. I love all things Spider-Man, especially these Insomniac games, and that's why I'm biased, because I was simply thrilled to get my hands on it and play it. I still think this game is worth playing, especially if you're like me and you haven't played it yet. I would still recommend it if you really like Spider-Man and you really like the Insomniac games and you haven't played it yet. I would recommend it, but I'm not blind to the issues that it has. It's given the next game a great opportunity to hit a home run, but it can't do that if it makes the same mistakes that this game has. So that is my review of Spider-Man 2. I felt like it was a good idea to make simply because this game is the whole reason I went after a brand new, really expensive PlayStation console. But we're also in the theme lately of calling out stupid corporate crap as far as gaming companies are concerned, and Spider-Man 2 is not immune at all. Spider-Man 2 suffers a lot from dumb corporate crap, and I really hope we don't end up seeing that in Spider-Man 3, or Spider-Man 3 is doomed. Spider-Man 2, all things considered, was still a success for PlayStation and for Insomniac. Do I think Spider-Man 2 is a bad game? No, I don't. In fact, I've said it and I'll say it again. I think it's actually still very fun despite all of its faults. Super fun to play. It has a story. You can get connected with the characters in it and all of that good stuff. But again, can't be blind to the issues here. Thank you guys for watching my second game review in the form of a little video essay. I hope you guys enjoyed. These videos do take a lot of time and effort to make, so if you would, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so that you do not miss any more videos if you really enjoyed this one, because I enjoy making them, especially if people enjoy watching them. Until next time, that's all I've got for now. I've been Skydie. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.
Why would I throw in the towel? I just got on my bag. I don't make no mistakes. No, I'm coming for mine, and there ain't no one taking my place. Listen, I've taken some L's. Yeah, that means I lived and I learned. Now I got some money to burn.